All right, so in the last 2 weeks, the Bears have managed to lose at places that Michael Wilbon have homes in.
How about
DC
just
and
lose
Arizona.
the places I live? How about that?
Well,
They can lose. They never lose in Chicago. I live there too.
They're not going to lose this weekend to the Pats.
They better
feel
not.
pretty
Although
confident.
I don't know. I think their spirit's broken.
Broken.
That's what I thought. Yeah,
Not damaged.
Yeah, I hope it's not broken. It's certainly battered.
Yeah.
And that's what I was afraid of. I'm afraid that the Hail Mary is going to ruin their season. That you go from the momentum of being 5-2 into a soft landing road game where you've got half the people in the stands in Arizona, which is going to be a tough game anyway, or Arizona's in first place in their division. But you go to a game that's winnable, and you know, I'm not questioning their effort, but I am saying I think their spirit is battered. That's what happens. There are games and plays in every sport that do that, and I think the Bears suffered one here in Washington.
Would you agree that based on what you just said, that's where a good, strong coach and his staff step in and make sure that you are right when the ball's in the air when you play the following week?
Yeah, they didn't need football that week. They needed a camp counselor. They needed Mike Ditka. That's who they needed. And that that's probably not, look, I know Coach Eberflus is taking it on the chin, and some of it probably rightfully so, some of it. But that doesn't seem to be what he does best. Obviously, he does a lot of things pretty damn well because until, for the last 8 games last year and the first 7 games or 6 games and 58 minutes this year, that defense of his and the defense of special teams has been great. And he gets credit for that. But that last play or last 2 plays, and then this week, and I'm afraid it's going to cost them. I just think they look like a 6-11 team now.
I said to Sylvia, this loss for me was worse than the Commanders' loss. I understand that the Commanders' loss was more like dramatic, but this was a good old-fashioned beatdown, especially in the second half.
They got thumped.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm talking about with the spirit. They didn't have it.
Yeah.
They didn't have it. And that's what a coach has to anticipate, a head coach has to anticipate on the plane Sunday night coming back from Washington. How am I going to get these guys back? It is not about that was not about the X's and O's of football. It was not about strategy. It wasn't about scheming. It wasn't about matchups. That was about you got to figure out who's going to help you, whether it's staff and or senior players, who's going to help you rally that team during the weekend. They either didn't do it adequately or they didn't do it at all. Either way, it didn't show up Sunday in Arizona.
Michael, the decision's easy when they're 6-11. What happens if they do bounce back and win 2 out of these next 3 road games, and then basically, play 1 below 500 the rest of the way, and they win 8? They go 8-9.
Yeah.
Then what?
I got to see how they do it. Win 2 out of 3 road games. They haven't won a road game yet.
I mean, 2 out of these next 3 home games.
Home games.
Yeah, this home
So
stretch.
that you got them beating the Packers, which is, it's doable. I'm not about to say they're a bad team. I'm not. Look, I told you guys when we talked all summer about what I expected or what I wanted from this team most, and I said improvement, and particularly from weeks 6 through 14 or whatever. And we didn't see that last week. We didn't. We actually did see some sparks of that in the Washington game because they were up against it and they were struggling and they found a way to basically win that game. But now they've gone to this place and can they get out of it? Can they do something to improve that team from now the rest of the way? I got to see how it plays out. Yeah. It won't just be the record. Are these close games? Do they go to overtime against the Vikings and the Lions and then lose? I got to see the tone of it. I got to see what they're like, and are they getting better? Because they regressed Sunday. That was a big regression.
That is a great way to describe how the rookie quarterback played, in my humble opinion. And I think for me, Mike, obviously as he goes, the team will go.
Yeah.
So my biggest concern going forward my biggest focus is you got to get this kid back on track, and his development is what's most important for this franchise at the moment. And if in fact you can get him back on track, guess what will happen? The wins will follow. So you got to focus on getting him right, and you got to put him in position to get the best out of his situation.
I'm glad you said that, Tommy. But there's two things that worry me that aren't they're directly affecting Caleb Williams, but I don't know if you can do anything about it. One, the offensive line was dreadful.
Yes.
It was dreadful. That offensive line regressed and played like, last year and the first couple of games this year when he got sacked 7 times in a game. And the other thing is the offensive coordinator. I mean, you can't tell me, your tight end's a big dude. He's like 6'6", 260. I don't want to hear you can't find him. I don't want to hear you can't design something to free him. Because if you can't design something to free him, you need to be relieved of your duties now. Don't want to see Luke Getsy again. He was relieved of his again. Don't want to see it. If you can't with those receivers, with those 3 receivers and that tight end and that back, once again they regressed to the screen game, which had gotten so much better for a 3-week period. It was dreadful. If you've got a pass rush that is hell-bent on killing your quarterback, something's open. You have to then counterpunch. There are things you can do to help a dreadful offensive line. I've been asking coaches I know about this over the last couple of weeks, and the Bears aren't doing it. And if that offensive coordinator can't do it, he's got to go. You've got to help. How are you going to help the quarterback if you can't counter pass rush, something as basic and as 21st century NFL as aggressive, sophisticated pass rush? If you can't counter that with the weapons that you guys have assembled, you got to go.
Well, he's got to convince the quarterback, too, that he needs to take what's available
to
him.
Yes,
because
he does.
as you'll ask people,
those plays where you've got your running back 8 yards down the field over the middle, you got to take that play. Tom, yes, you're right.
Yeah,
but you got to free up your tight end. I don't want to hear that you can't free him. If you can't free him, you don't deserve that game.
I mean, we should sit down and watch it. There are opportunities, and they're just he's not throwing it. Again, I mean, when things go this wrong, everybody's to blame.
Everybody is.
Yeah,
everybody is. But I know one thing: I see some other teams where I see people running free.
Yeah,
and I don't see that on the
They're not scheming anybody open.
There's some people who might be open for a second, and he has to take that. I'll grant you that. But it ain't the same as some other offenses I see with the creativity. And by the way, to be fair, we saw some of that creativity against lesser teams the Bears played the previous 3 weeks. But we didn't see it Sunday.
I've got a couple questions about Caleb. Number one, and you've shied away from wanting to talk about Carl Williams in the past, and you know him a little bit. He tweeted last week and then deleted the tweet involving a video regarding the Commanders' defensive coordinator who had a lot of accountability for allowing the Bears to score late in the game. And he retweeted that video, and he hashtagged it accountability, #real coach. Did that mean anything in your opinion?
I don't pay attention to tweets, not by anybody. I don't pay attention to podcasts and tweets.
That's all.
And certainly not by fathers of players who I'm a father. I would do anything to defend my son. So I just don't pay attention to that. I'm not in the 21st century media, apparently.
Here's a question, though, for you. And that was my first gut instinct, but Peggy pointed out to me, like Derrick Rose, Reggie was more than a brother. Reggie ran point for him. And in this case, without an agent, Carl's more than just a dad.
Mm-hmm. I didn't pay attention to Reggie either, and I'm no one like him.
Okay.
I don't. I'm not in that.
Podcasts and tweets.
I grew up in media at a different time. If I paid attention to every parent who came to me on deadline and said, "You got to rip the coach for not playing my kid more minutes," I would have just written about that for 40 years. I don't give a damn about that stuff.
All right. Second question. You mentioned Caleb getting bruised and battered, and then there he is in a 3-score game or whatever it was.
Shouldn't have been out there. The coordinator and the coach have got to get him out of there. And that was said during the broadcast. Who did the color?
Charles Davis.
Yeah, and he's
Charles
coming up
Davis
with us
was
next.
on the money.
Yeah.
Yes.
He shouldn't have been out there. I'm screaming at it to TV. Shouldn't have been out there. That was dumb.
Flus, like he was asked, Eberflus was asked, and he said, no, we play to the end.
Yeah, listen, here's the thing. Coaches are the last people in the world who ever publicly say, my bad. Everybody else except the dude running for president today and coaches, particularly football coaches, can say, I might rethink that one. They don't do it. And it's one of the many reasons I think coaching today is inferior in the NFL to what it was. They just don't do it. And so no matter what happens out there, I mean, I'm sure that Todd Bowles, who I really like, I got to know him as a player here in Washington. And I like him as a player, liked him as a player, love him as a coach. He probably is going to double down and say he wouldn't go for 2. Well, you know what? If you want to give the ball to the guy in red wearing 15, that's a bad decision. I don't care whether you double down or not.
Yeah. You control it. Yes.
You control. And coaches, this is what football coaches do. No, I was right. No, you were wrong. It was wrong to have Caleb Williams out there, and any other answer than that is doubly wrong. It's stupid. And you could have ruined your season and going forward if you have him out there look, you're in harm's way every snap, but to be in unnecessary harm's way is dumb.
Well, we call those fireable offenses, and unfortunately, we've accumulated a ton of those to the point where they're not fireable offenses because no one's paying the price for it.
Well, they're not. This is not that franchise, Tom. You know that better than me. I've been following them for 60 years. I never was there in Hallis Hall in the meeting room, but that's not what the Bears do, and I'm okay with that. I am. I'm not saying they should go, full bore and react in a way that is out of personality to the franchise. And it's a family run. It's a family franchise. No. I'm not down with that.
No, I get that, but this is where my concern is, and I circle back to talking about how the primary focus for me is developing this young quarterback because you have so much of your franchise invested in him and his success. If in fact, I wouldn't think leaving him on the field with 1:09 to go, down 3 scores with no timeouts and no chance to win the game, I don't believe that's helping his development. In fact, you're putting him in harm's way. So when you continually stack these moments where you are questioning whether or not you are putting the infrastructure around this young man to develop him, that's when you have to take a step back and go, wait a second now. We got to have a long, deep, and meaningful
there's
conversation.
There's going to be time for that soon enough. Yeah. There's going to be time for it. But this isn't Philadelphia.
No, I know.
But there's going to be time for it. And, look, I told you guys last week, Hail Mary is going to cost Eberflus's job, more than likely. Because unless they can rally that team, the spirit of that team first, to where they're playing like they were in the fourth quarter in Washington before those last two plays. If he can recover that, okay, then I'll take it back. I'm not going to be like coaches and just say, no, I'm going to double down on anything I say because I said it and I'm a coach. I'll take it back. But I got to see. You got to show me. Don't tell me. You got to show me you can do something better than what you did in Arizona on Sunday.
I could vouch for that because you've been wrong a lot, so you've admitted it.
Yeah, like the stadium and the lakefront. Yeah, like that.
That hasn't
Wait a minute. I haven't seen a shovel. Yeah.
Okay. Do I see a shovel in Arlington?
No.
I don't see
any shovels.
You know what? The only shoveling's going to be shoveling up the poop that they leave wherever they go right now.
Ooh, that was pretty strong right there.
Well, I'm tired of watching crap, Mike. It is crazy when you do look at the lack of success. How about this, Mike? This is where we're at now. They're 3-18 on the road now under the Matt Eberflus era, and the 3 games they have won, they have beaten Bailey Zappi, Josh Dobbs, and Sam Howell. Those are their 3 quarterbacks they've beaten away from Soldier
Field. I think we're really susceptible this week. I really do. I'm really worried about Sunday. Again,
are you really?
Yeah.
Against the Patriots?
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter who the opposition is.
No, but we play well at home. That's what we do.
We do play well at home, but we also play with a certain spirit going back to the last half of last year. We didn't have that. We didn't have that Sunday.
I want to ask you about Tyreek Stevenson and the fallout from that and the way it was reporting. There was some good reporting going into this, including our own Courtney Cronin. The report goes that on Wednesday when he went to practice, he was informed in the special teams period that he would not start that week. Right. And he left practice because he needed some time to process it. Was that handled the right way, and should a player ever leave practice?
I don't know about whether a player should leave practice. It depends on what is going on. It depends on the circumstance. But no, I would have suspended him. I told you guys that last week. I would have suspended him for the week. Period.
Like, you wouldn't have let him practice?
He could practice. If he wanted to leave, then he might be suspended for a second week.
So you would have just benched him, you're saying? You wouldn't have suspended?
I would have benched him for the week.
Yeah.
And I'm not the only one. I heard people say that.
I've heard a lot of
people say that on Sunday, last Sunday. Former players and former coaches. No, I didn't suspend. Dude, I'm from the Greg Popovich school. No, we don't. We're not doing that. Suspension or bench, whatever you want to call it. He'd have been that.
Yeah, he makes you a better football team when he's on the field.
I get it, but so does almost everybody who's worthy of being suspended. Draymond Green makes you a better team too, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, he does. He's got 4 championship rings. Of course he does.
Well, but he's also a repeat offender. I mean,
but my point is that's not what your go-to was. He makes you a better team.
Well, yeah.
Draymond makes you a better team. But you got to sit him down.
There is some nuance to my perspective.
Like,
here.
where do you draw the line, guys? Like, for instance, the Jets player who dropped the ball before he ran into the end zone. This is an epidemic.
What did the Cowboys do with Leon Lett that year? Anything?
No, I don't.
And that was in the Super Bowl. What was it? The Super Bowl, and they won. I mean, and they won big in that game.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was against the Bills, right?
I was thinking it was a playoff game. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, you could look. I'm not going to say there aren't some double standards because there are. I believe in double standards. If it had been somebody that had played for you for years and had just done one exemplary thing after another, if Peanut Tillman had made that, of course, he never would have done it. Right. He wouldn't have been guilty of that stupidity. Yes. But let's say it was Peanut Tillman. Would I make an exception? You damn right I would. I believe in double standards.
Well, and the thing that still leaves me, it's troubling for me, is that it's happening. Why is this happening?
Because they don't have enough fear of their head coach.
Well, this is year 3 of this. So
if you don't fear. Would these things be happening under Bill Belichick?
No, I agree with you, Mike. This is why I'm saying to you, this is why I'm so fearful that this young quarterback is not being surrounded with the right infrastructure to get the most out of him.
Well, the decision making.
Yeah.
The decision making in the positions over him, the generals. And if the Generals are blowing it, then it's not good for anybody, and particularly your young franchise rookie quarterback.
Let me ask you a question. We talked about it earlier that, historically, this is a franchise that doesn't make decisions in the middle of the season. Right. Do you believe with the change in the power structure, when Kevin Warren now in charge of the franchise via the president's seats, do you believe that there may be a larger possibility that they may do business differently with him in charge?
No, I don't. By the way, I don't know this. It's not like I've had this conversation, even hypothetically, with Kevin. But there's somebody over Kevin.
Sure,
as an owner. Last I checked, a descendant of George Halas. So no, I don't see any of that changing. That's just me. That's just my opinion. I don't know anything. I'm just saying that is not. I do not. I just had this conversation with Matthew last night, who's going crazy over all the things we just talked about and the trade they made today to get rid of Khalil Herbert, and he's just going nuts. And I said, listen, no, nothing's going to happen with anybody. That's not the way the Bears do business.
What about Belichick, Mike?
A sampling of 10 years or 30 years or even 60 years. We're talking about 103 years.
Yeah, they've never done it.
So
Wait,
they're not gonna do it, and even like I don't even consider it.
You mentioned Belichick. Would you be in favor if they said
No,
you don't want Belichick?
No, you have to. Times pass for everybody. Would I want Don Shula? Yeah, I mean, in 1974, I'd want Don Shula, or even 1984. Yeah, no, the time's over for Belichick. It ends for even the greatest of coaches, and he's arguably the greatest coach out there, certainly on the short list at the top of it, with Don Shula and a few other people, Chuck Noll and Bill Walsh, for my money personally.
You'd still hire Joe Gibbs today.
Not today. Joe Gibbs didn't work the second time around. Joe Gibbs, by the way, you put Joe Gibbs on that list.
So, Mike, let me ask you.
But not now.
When that conversation is had, what would be the rationale for George McCaskey telling Kevin Warren that if Kevin came to the conclusion that the best thing for this organization from a football perspective was to make a change, what would the explanation be from George, just hypothetically? Is it that we've never done things this way?
In part, I believe it's fair for families that have been in business that long to have a tradition that they live by, just like we have traditions in our own homes.
But it's a track record of less than
I hear you. I hear you.
Yeah.
I get you. I didn't say I would make the same decision.
Right.
I'm just saying. You asked me if I was explaining that to Kevin why I wouldn't want to do it that way. That would be probably the decision. But going back to Belichick for a second, because this is going to come up. And Belichick, you have to turn everything in your franchise over to Belichick. And you got to do it for 5 years. Do you want to do that? How old is Bill now? 73, maybe. You want to do that? You want to do that for Belichick till he's 78 years old? Because I don't. No, that time's gone.
Yeah, I get it.
So you're saying this, Jimmy Johnson, Joe Gibbs. Yes, all these. I just mentioned 3 of the guys who are among the 15 greatest coaches who ever lived. I'm not giving any of them the keys now.
Yeah.
No, you got to go out and you got to do the hard work and find somebody.
The next one.
Yeah.
Michael, great stuff. We appreciate you.
You guys.